you don't know when that moment's going to come that a client calls you and says, I need this right now, or this thing that I never thought would happen is happening, or this person that's very close to me is sick, or again, a divorce or something like that. And when you go through that with an individual, and I think all advisors that maybe listen to this know this, when you go through that with someone, if you're a good advisor and responsive and all the things that probably a lot of people listening to this are, you know that then that relationship is going to be tight probably forever.
I can't wait to introduce you to Knowing Me, Knowing You, the Know Me podcast where the future of financial advice starts with discovery. We're bringing you candid conversations with top industry leaders, innovators, and behavioral finance experts, exploring how wealth managers can deepen client relationships, personalize advice at scale, and drive real business growth. Because clients don't just want financial plans, they want to feel understood. They want to be known. Stay tuned, subscribe, and get ready to transform the way you connect with clients. Know Me, transforming discovery into growth. Today, we are thrilled to welcome Tim Hamilton, Managing Director and Senior Wealth Advisor at Compound Planning and a passionate advocate for reshaping wealth management for a new generation of entrepreneurs. With 17 years of experience and credentials including a CFP, the CIMA, Tim's work is rooted in the complexities faced by builders, those that are growing businesses, careers, families, networks. At Compound, he brings a behavioral lens to wealth advising. He helps clients not just optimize, but make decisions in line with their values, their psychology, and their long-term goals. Tim has a master's in wealth management from Columbia University. He serves as the president of the Metro New York chapter of the Financial Planning Association. His commitment to innovation and inclusion sets him apart in an industry not always known for speed or soul. Whether it's helping a founder navigate an equity event, simplifying a business exit, or just listening deeply, Tim brings empathy, insight, and experience to every conversation. We're thrilled to have you here, Tim. Welcome to the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
It's a delight. We always start with what excites you about the moment that we're in right now, about the future of wealth management?
Well, I think I have to give the answer that you probably think I'm going to say, that a lot of people are saying right now, but it really is technology and AI. It's what everybody's talking about. And we at Compound are a company that I think is pretty forward looking as it relates to technology, and the technology of the moment is definitely AI. And this is what I think is going to really change the game. I think, especially as it relates to AI, it's going to allow advisors to do a lot more with less. And I think that what this will actually allow advisors to do is give them a lot more freedom. Ultimately, that will lead to more client choice. So maybe making this into a longer answer than it needs to be. But going back in time, I started in 2008. And at that time, we were really in this moment where the RIA world was really growing very, very quickly. 2000s in general, the RIA world started to grow very quickly. But then 2008, there was just a major pushback against major banks, wirehouses, all of that, I think, as we can all remember. And so this more modular approach, this more independent approach, I think was really what advisors and clients were wanting in that moment. Fast forward 10 years or so from there, mid 2010s to late 2010s, I think we really started to see something else happening where it was really about scale, consolidation, a lot of people selling business, merging businesses. And as an advisor, I felt that you kind of felt like, okay, if I wasn't with someone that's scaling properly, I'm going to be left behind. What I think might happen, who knows, but my little theory right now is that what AI might allow people to do is go back maybe to being a bit more independent. And because you are able to do so much more with less, it's going to allow advisors to, again, be more modular, be more independent, be a little bit more innovative. And that will result in more client choice, more advisors that have more particular specializations in financial planning topics, or more advisors that have different types of fee structures that may work better. So that's what I'm excited about, to just see where the industry largely goes with this massive thing, technology, more specifically AI behind it.
Yeah. And if you keep going, so I love that you elaborated a little bit more about why AI and technology, what that actually means to the experience. And it sounds like you're referencing the advisor experience, but also the client experience. So I also really appreciate that you went through this timeline a little bit. Here's where you started, and 2008 was a little bit of a blow up, and definitely the couple of years following. And then it really became about scale consolidation. I think we're still very much seeing scale and consolidation as key themes. Um, Talk to us a little bit more about becoming independent again, why it matters, and what has to be unlearned to get there. So if you even go further back, so I think I've shared with you, Tim, my dad is he started as a stockbroker at Merrill Lynch and called out of the phone book and sold, whatever stock, IBM stock this week, whatever the other week, it might be another one. And there was something beautiful in that you had to make the sale. You had to actually explain why does IBM stock make sense for me in my life? And with the commoditization of the investment part, and a lot of people are just selling models, a lot of that nuance and personalization has gone away. And so I love what you said, that we're going back to being independent. Share a little bit more about that and the unlearning process of going back to the client that you see happening or that has to happen.
Yeah, lot in there. It's funny. I forget what podcast it was that I listened to, but it is funny. It's like you go all the way back to the start of this profession, and the early 20th century, and it's everything slowly becomes commoditized. And when I was starting, financial planning was where I really felt you could make this huge difference and give the client that value add. And I think we're already seeing even the planning side being a bit commoditized, and I do think AI will make it even more so. And so it's looking at, where do I provide value as an advisor? And that's where the emotional piece, the behavioral piece, becomes so vitally important. And that's why I believe, and I think it's a really core piece of what compound planning is that for especially complex clients, a human is going to be at the center of that relationship because of many reasons, but especially that behavioral emotional piece. And then in terms of like what that means for the unlearning, I mean, I honestly think it's everything. Like, it is just constant unlearning. And I'm about to turn 40 in a few days. I had a phone when I was a kid that was a turn phone. And then in middle school, I was dialing up to the internet. My freshman class of college was the first class on Facebook. Very different then. And it was just, 2007, the year before I graduated college, I was this first smartphone. And I think one thing, and I'm sure, future generations, Gen Z, they're going to be the same way. But I just feel it's ever since I've been a kid, you just constantly have to unlearn and learn new systems. And it's going to continue to be that way. I've learned so many different types of financial planning softwares and different CRMs. And now we're learning how to integrate AI or learning how to use Zoom and how to have the right Zoom meeting and how to structure that. And so the unlearning, I think, has sped up, but it's always been a part of this industry. And I think if you're not someone that's willing to unlearn, and of course, relearning is the other really important piece there, but to adapt, to be a little bit malleable, I think knowing what's going to be happening in this industry, I think you will be a little bit left behind.
Yeah. So you mentioned the complex clients that you're serving today. Can you help explain, what does that mean? What makes them complex? What are the variables of a complex? So I know compound planning focuses on builders, on entrepreneurs, on those who might have very high concentrations of illiquid positions, or maybe even liquid positions. And that puts them in a slightly different category when it comes to their needs, their financial planning and wealth management needs. I'm curious for your thoughts on, as you think about the variables of that particular niche, go back also to the topic that you raised on the commoditization of financial planning and what you're doing to battle that, to generate more value for this very complex, nuanced market that you're serving.
Yeah. Again, great question. I think there's two things there. So let's start like with builders and why I like working with that subset of people. Retirees have the most liquid wealth, and I love working with retirees. I have retirees I work with, but lately, where I do get a lot of satisfaction is people that are in a similar life stage as me, because I think there is a lot of times more complexity there. You're buying your first home, you're buying your first rental property, you're building your first business, you're exiting your first business, you're having your first kid or your second kid or your first divorce. And these are huge, monumental times in your life where having a human that really knows what they're talking about from a financial standpoint is there to work through this with you, because they're not, like you're going through a divorce. It's not point and shoot. I mean, it's something you have to learn what's going through a person's head. What goals do they want from this? What's the best scenario that we can work towards, knowing that this is an emotional time. And these are much more complex than how do I get X amount of money to retire at X age? Because I think a lot of people can do that, but where I find a lot more satisfaction these days is working with people that have just a lot of different things going on in their life, and it's a ton of change. And then with that too, there's also just the complexity of, especially if you're talking about founders and people that are in startups like myself, it's even if you want to have all your assets consolidated at one place, it doesn't happen. You have shares of equity over here, you have a private asset over here, you have some public stock here, maybe you have a rental property here, and then again you have children, you have obviously the business that's taking up the majority of your brain space. And so it's not as simple as I think maybe it used to be, where you had a pension, or maybe, my mother-in-law worked at Kodak for her entire life, 22 to 60, you just don't see that much, especially when you're in this space. And so being able to work with clients that just have a lot going on creates a lot more complex questions, a lot more complex things to work through. And I just get a lot of satisfaction from that. And so in terms of how to help those individuals, I think I hit on the fact that there is this emotional element of, these are not questions that are, if you do this, this is the better option. It has a lot to do with, what are your goals? Do you want to retire as quickly as you can? Do you actually want to enjoy your life? And you don't even know if you'll ever want to retire. Are you looking to travel a lot more? Or again, just retire as early as possible? Are you looking to try to grow wealth that's going to be in your family for generations? Are you very interested in charitable giving? I think these are things that people are thinking about at a younger age already. So it's much more nuanced, again, just how do I build wealth as quickly as I can to retire? Then the other aspect, I think, with this population of people is, I think one thing that we haven't done a great job of as an industry is figuring out a way to make people's lives actually easier. And I think especially if you're looking at people that may be more in tech, one thing that we've noticed is there's just so many ways that life has gotten a lot easier. Like whatever it is, Spotify, the fact that you can all of a sudden click your phone and have the entire world of music at your fingertips. It's insane. I remember spending, days after school at the CD shop. Like, yeah, it's just amazing that is available to you. With Uber, how much easier it is to just catch a cab, especially in, where I live in St. Paul, or where I'm from, St. Paul, Minnesota, or I lived a while in Rochester, New York. There were taxis there. Like life is just easier and better. I don't know how much that's happened as much in this industry. Especially when I started, it was a lot of, you'd have to drive across town, go into an office, talk to a financial planner. They'd say, okay, I need your help. And then you'd say, okay, great. Here's a list of all the things I need you to get me. And then you have to go back. You have to grab all these different documents, maybe talk to your CPA, even maybe talk to your lawyer, get all the stuff together, put it in a binder, bring it back, give it to us. And we look through everything and then we hand it back and say, here's all the things that you should do. Go do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Yeah.
not that there wasn't value to that, but a lot of times it was work, and it was valuable work, but it wasn't kind of pressing the easy button. And I
Right.
do think with technology and with just what we're able to do, there is an easier solution for people out there. And
So can I ask you a
that's,
question though? Like on
yeah,
that topic, just on like the onboarding, the preparing to work with a wealth management advisor, with somebody who's going to actually help you in wealth management, has the easy button done anything besides automating what frankly everyone else has automated? So now we can do e-signatures. Now you can actually share that your tax returns digitally via a document sharing platform. But is that fundamental change enough? And when you think about like the complexity, and I love that you started and say, okay, there's the math complexity of this builder base. They have nuanced needs as it relates to asset tax performance. They have complexity there. It's different. They have different assets. They have different liquidity profiles. They've got different tax profiles, whatever. But there's also the behavioral finance complexity. There are things that might be happening earlier in their life that don't follow the regimented format of a financial planning tool that makes a lot of assumptions about you. And those financial planning tools are built for ease of sale and scale. They are not built for the nuanced niche edge, 30-year-old billionaire who now has to think about things in a very different way and has different life events coming up that a retiree wouldn't even have to consider. And so I wonder, when you think about easy, to get back to the question, how are we making that planning process, a whole entire experience of wealth management easy, and not just the fringes of aggregating accounts and uploading documents?
well, I don't think it's been done yet. I know it's something that compound
That's a
planning is
very
working
fair answer. Yes.
hard to try to solve. I think that's at the core of why I, made the move. Again, I don't think that we've quite accomplished it yet. I want to
Yeah.
be working at a place that's trying to do that, but it's, the industry is so fragmented and there's so many different reasons that it is just kind of, your finances are always just kind of gunky, and I do think using technology that can unify all those different parts of your financial life, overlay a true human that understands you and you can talk to and is there, whatever happens, because something big is always, you never think it is, but something big is going to happen every few years. It's going to change whatever that plan was, as you noted, is really important. And I can dive into, I think, what compound planning is trying to do, but I think it's a little bit with the advisor, a little bit with the client. So we're trying to create, number one, a client dashboard where the client can live, where everything that they need to do for their financial life, both with assets that we might be managing, with outside assets, and start doing your taxes in there. You can do your financial plans are in the dashboard, your vault, things like that. So having the entire financial life in that dashboard, and then also connected to, on the back end, an advisor headquarters, call it Advisor HQ, which is sitting on top of things like Orion and Salesforce and Eclipse and things like that. But for the advisor, there's really one place that you can go. That's a CRM, that is a place that you can trade, place you can look at your client accounts, money movements, all of that. When those two things are connected, the client dashboard and the advisor headquarters are connected, and all that data is living in one place. Then you can overlay AI on top of that. The hope is that now you're making something that's a little bit more intuitive, that can sense when something is going wrong in a client's life. Why is a client logging into their dashboard 5 times in the middle of the night? Why are transfers happening that just seem erratic? And just making it easier for the client to go to that dashboard and say, hey, I need to schedule a meeting tomorrow, or can you hop on a Zoom right now? I need to talk to you. Just making everything being in one place and just easier to communicate, I think is at least a start. And then, of course, all the things that you mentioned too, the DocuSigns, the uploading, really great onboarding process. These are all things that I think once you put it all together, will hopefully get to a place where it's a lot easier than it was 10, 12 years ago.
What are you saying about serving founders as clients?
Well, I think one thing that's sometimes maybe is misunderstood is, especially when you're working with a startup, whatever you're worth on paper is just on paper. And I know a lot of people that maybe do have very high net worths on paper, but are really literally living paycheck to paycheck. And a lot of these individuals are so risk forward, so aggressive towards risk, that that's okay. And that's the way they want to live their life. But, when we talk about builders, and you're building a family, you're building a company, you're buying your first home, you're doing all of these things, how those things play together becomes much more complex. And you can be great at growing a business, but as it relates to your personal finances, it might not be great. And again, you may be essentially almost living paycheck to paycheck. And when you marry someone and you start having kids, that type of lifestyle, that aggressive risk on lifestyle, can have ramifications outside of just the business. And so parsing out business versus personal life, how do you make all those different pieces of your financial life and really your emotional life work in a way that works for you it's complex and nuanced. And I think, as I mentioned before, that's why I really like working with these individuals, because it's a lot of different pieces coming together, and they don't always jive. Even if somebody's really great at one thing, it doesn't mean they're going to be great at everything.
Fantastic. So we have a lot of wealth managers that listen to this podcast. And I know you've got a brilliant, fantastic background as a CFP and being involved in behavioral finance, working for a long time at the edge of that human behavioral element of wealth management. What is it that you're doing differently that you would want other wealth managers to recognize and see and harness and change? And where are there still gaps? And I'm curious to get your thoughts on that, especially as it relates to what value is your client getting out of you?
That's a very good question. I think that this is really important to every advisor. What is the value that they are bringing? And it is so hard to pinpoint. And it's constantly our job to let clients know the value you're bringing. But it's been harder over the years, because, as you said, as investments have got commoditized, as financial planning started to be commoditized, it's hard to tell a client, why are they choosing to use a human? Why are they choosing to use you over the thousands of advisors out there? So I think it does come down a little bit to personality. That's why I think a human advisor is so important. I don't work well with every type of person. And a lot of times I'll know that right off the first call. You get a referral, and sometimes you mesh with people and sometimes you don't. I tend to work better with people that are not kind of the fire approach. I can, again, like we were saying earlier.
Fire as in financial independence, retire early?
Yes. And
okay.
And
for
again,
people who aren't familiar with FIRE, they've been
yes.
living under a rock. They're not on Reddit.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what FIRE means.
And I think it's great. I'm not saying anything wrong with that, but for me, I work with a lot of people that are like me. I want to do this forever, and I love my job. I don't actually really know what the heck I do in retirement, And I make choices that are trying to maximize my utility outside of only finance. I think money is a tool that allows you to achieve the goals that you want in your life. And purely retiring early or purely trying to accumulate as many assets as you can is not my pure utility. And so working with people on what are you trying to do with this money? Why are you doing this? And how can I help you accomplish that? Those are the people that I seem to connect with the most. And the people I enjoy working with, which is probably why we connect so much.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not someone that says there's anything wrong with individuals that just say, I want to make as much money as I can, and I don't really care about anything else. That's fine.
Yeah.
But again, it is a personality thing. There's advisors that will work really, really well. No advisors that really specialize, especially again in things like fire. But that's why choice is so important.
I wonder, so go back a little bit where you said an advisor's job is to articulate the value they're delivering, to clearly show their client, here's the value I'm giving you, because it's something that the client might not recognize. They might not see that this is what you've helped me do. You've actually helped me align my money with the goal that I'm aiming for. You've helped me take an extra trip this year. You've helped me contribute to my favorite philanthropy. You helped me get through a sickness or a divorce, a little bit less stress. Those are the things that I think advisors, at least the ones that I talk to very often, there's some that do it really well. There's others for whom this is not their language. They feel very uncomfortable around anything that's not assets, performance, and math related. So how do you navigate that tension? And how are you seeing that as the key to innovation in our industry? When you think about AI, you think about the future, and you think about advisors articulating their value. What lessons do you have from your experience as a CFP, your experience in an innovative company now that's trying to make it easier to give advisors more capacity to do the important work? How are you helping advisors articulate their value, and what can that look like for them?
I think this is again something that we could do better.
Mhm.
I would like to see it something that is a little bit more built into our systems. There are ways I think that we could just do a better job of saying, and again, using things like AI and technology that just really summarizes very well for a client when they log into their dashboard. Hey, here's what we talked about last time. Here's what you've accomplished since then. Here's what you still need to accomplish. And, oh, by the way, here's how your assets have performed. We helped you with tax at this point, really just again, doing that, pressing the easy button, I guess, on the advisor side. That is something that I think that we need to continue to try to innovate on, because I think if you're not doing that, there are sometimes clients are just going to say like, why am I using this person? And it does need to be something that you're really putting front and center with clients as in terms of what you're doing for them, where you are providing value, and how you guided them along their plan. And then on the emotional side of things, that is really hard, because I think it's something that just happens over time. I think you don't know when that moment's going to come that a client calls you and says, I need this right now, or this thing that I never thought would happen is happening, or this person that's very close to me is sick, or again, a divorce or something like that. And when you go through that with an individual, and I think all advisors that maybe listen to this know this, when you go through that with someone, if you're a good advisor and responsive and all the things that I think probably a lot of the people listening to this are, that then that relationship is going to be tight probably forever. It's the build up to that point though of pushing your way through to having those deeper conversations so you understand more about their background, who they are, where they came from, why they're making the types of decisions they are, that when they get to that point, when they go through that really, really difficult time in their life, that them more than the dollars and cents. And again, where they came from, why they have different money scripts and things like that. What is actually going on in their head? Because during those higher stress times, it's so important to know them at a deeper level.
Yeah, I love that, and I think that's so true of all relationships. That when you're in the trenches with somebody in a high stakes scenario, that's when you're actually building bonds. That's when you're building relationships. You're building loyalty. You're building trust. So I love that. This time has flown by. I've got several more questions that we're not going to get to, Tim. We're going to have you back on the podcast again in the future. But the last question we always end with is, what is an instance in your life or a conversation that you've had that has totally changed your personal relationship with money?
Um, so, I'm gonna take a recent one because I'm sure if I think hard enough, I'm gonna be like, oh no, that was definitely the moment. But I'll talk about, like, I was blessed to have two amazing parents, and it taught me so much, and I think I'd have to do something that they've taught me. And more recently, I just bought my first home. Very very millennial of me. I didn't buy my first home until I was
Congratulations. Home and
38.
birthday.
Oh,
Congratulations.
yeah, yeah. So we bought our first, my wife and I are the same age. So we bought our first home at 38. And being the financial type that I am, I was pretty obsessive about, like, okay, is this the right investment? Am I timing the market right? Are we and I'm in New York City, and the housing market here is pretty crazy. And all I could think about is, like, how do I make the best possible financial decision? And there was a little bit of decision paralysis because of that. And a conversation I had with my mom, she said, Tim, you're in a third floor walk up on the corner of a very busy street. You have a new child, and now we have another one on the way. And you need to start thinking about, where do you want your home to be? Like, stop looking for the best investment. Start looking for, where do you want your home to be? What is a place that you can walk into and say, this is going to work for our family for, the foreseeable future? And it actually took a lot of, like, high stakesness out of it. And when I would just walk into somewhere and not look at it and say, okay, well, the market's here, and okay, what if they build this here or whatever? And is this stupid to do right now? And just, am I going to be happy here for the next 5, 10, maybe more years? And starting with that. And then, of course, you need to make sure, am I getting a good price? How are we negotiating the mortgage? How am I funding this and all of that? But, like, that first question of, like, is this the home I want? It was a great reminder for me. And of course, as a financial advisor, I had to come from my mom. But, like, this is not just a financial transaction. You're looking for a home. And I think sometimes we all do that. We get so obsessive with, like, am I making the right decision? Is this something that's am I going to get burned here? Or, no, like, what are you actually looking for? Why are you making this decision? It's the same, like, when I joined this company. I joined, and it was a startup. Like, it was a hard startup, and it was a decision that was much more than just financial. There were so many things went into that. And going back to, like, how do I maximize my utility? It just comes down to so much more than just finance. But of course, the finance piece is very, very important. And that's what we're here to help clients with. But I think it's important to have an understanding that these decisions involve so much more than just that.
I love that. And I love the element of empathy with your clients and your mom's wisdom, that it comes back to your values. What does home mean? Where will you feel comfortable? Where do you want to actually raise your family? And I love that she kind of, like, knocked you back into the value state of mind versus the very financial kind of, good good investment decision state of mind. And that's what it's all about. That's literally why we launched Nomi, is recognizing that is such a huge component of wealth management end to end. If you deeply understand the values, you can then hold it's that missing piece, and structuring it, understanding it is just as important as understanding all the other stuff. So, Tim, thank you. Thank you for bringing depth, clarity to our conversation. Thank you for all that you're doing for advising builders who have nuanced and unique and complex needs, both in the investment side of their brains and also in the doing the right thing for the right impact in line with their purpose side of their brains. And your work at Compound Planning has been really interesting to me as a startup founder, as somebody in the heart of Silicon Valley, surrounded by people who don't fit the niche mold of what wealth management is used to serving with a lot of the generic tools they have. I would love to ask you, where can our listeners learn more about you, about Compound Planning? Anything you'd like to share so that they can connect with you?
Yeah, www.compoundplanning.com. And you can look me up on there. You can schedule a meeting right from my bio. So anyone that has interest in compound planning, or if you're in New York, if you have an interest in the Metro New York FPA, or any reason you want to talk to me, I'm a pretty open book. Please feel free to schedule a time to speak with me. And yes, please learn more about compound planning. There's a dashboard demo and all that right on there. So I please encourage anyone that's interested, check out the website, and again, feel free to reach out to me.
Fantastic. And I believe inside many of our listeners, you might all consider yourselves in some respect a builder. And I wonder, as you think of yourself as a builder, how are you making the right financial decisions for you that feel right in the moment, that are rooted in your values, just like Tim, as he's welcoming a new child, enjoying his birthday, and just bought a house, all of these amazing things to celebrate. Please, if you liked this conversation, if you learned something about it, if you got a sense of what the gaps are in wealth management and wealth tech today, and where you can be focusing your energy to articulate your value clearly, to connect better with your clients, please share this. Share this, like it, rate it on your favorite podcasting platform. That's what we're here for. We're all about knowing me, knowing you, and creating a better future of wealth management. Tim, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Knowing Me, Knowing You podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Your support helps us bring more transformative conversations to you. Until next time, keep discovering, keep growing, and remember, you're in control of your own financial story. Follow us for more conversations on financial confidence, self-discovery, and the future of money.